Hello all you lovely people out there, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Console Log. This is episode number 43, the week of July 2nd through July 8th. Not a lot of big things happened this past week, I won't lie to you. There's a few things that I'm going to share with you this week that I think are notable, but nothing that will really get you out of your seat, running around the neighborhood, screaming, "Oh my god, I just learned this amazing thing in the latest episode of the Console Log." You're not going to have this week. I mean, you're still going to learn something, but you're not going to learn about how to, cure death. Weird way to start this episode. Whatever, let's start the episode. So I got two exciting NPM things to share with you today. There is a new Canary version of NPM out with a new feature called NPM Archive. And the cool thing about NPM Archive is it is a tool built into NPM that will allow you to actually create a completely offline copy of all your NPM packages. So the way that this works is you run NPM Archive, NPM goes through all of your node modules and makes a new folder called Archived Packages, and in there puts all the .tar files, all those NPM packages that you can then actually commit this archive packages folder into your Git repo along with the updated package.json file, and when you do an NPM install, it actually use that archive packages folder itself. It'll have to go out, NPM won't have to go out to NPM and the internet to actually fetch that information down. It would have to go to another Git repo to get that information. It'll all be stored locally on your computer, which is great if you're on an airplane, or probably more commonly if you're using a CI environment. You want to have those builds be more reproducible. So a new feature coming out, not out yet. It's being tested in the Canary version of NPM, which is the next upcoming version of NPM, but it's a very nice thing to have, so you can actually not worry about having to go out and depend upon internet when you actually want to do an NPM install locally. NPM Archive, you can try it now with npmx, npmc archive if you want to. And the second NPM news this past week, which is probably a little bit more bigger news, is that NPM is actually shutting down their GitHub issues and moving all support to a hosted discourse forum bulletin board system. And I've long seen NPM struggle. It's a very small team, and they've struggled to actually maintain and actually keep on top of all the support that comes in on the GitHub issues pages. And GitHub is notoriously, how can I put this politely, not the best advocate when it comes to helping open source maintainers. So this move by NPM is definitely them trying to figure out the best solution for them to actually be as effective as they can to give support to the community. So now if you actually want to have an issue with NPM, you actually go now to npm.community instead of the GitHub issue tracker. All that you can do on GitHub right now is open a PR request. All issues go on the npm.community. Personally, I think this is probably the best move for NPM. In many ways, if GitHub would support and actually address the concerns of open source maintainers more directly, you wouldn't have these issues occurring. But be that as it may, GitHub has many things that it's doing, so I'm sure they have their own reasons for not really fixing these issues, but you're trying to see this shift in this pain that open source maintainers are experiencing, and this is NPM's solution to that pain. This past week, React Native 0.56 was released. This is a big release in React Native land. It has a lot of changes in this past release. I had no idea how many changes this release had until I started reading the actual change log. Some of the marquee changes in this release is that they've upgraded from Babel 6 to Babel 7. They've modernized their Android support to upgrade to Gradle 3.5, Android SDK 26. These are things that are actually going to be required for upcoming Android store changes. Node 8 is now the standard for React Native. They dropped support for iOS 8, making iOS 9 the oldest iOS version for React Native, which is probably not a big deal because iOS 12 is coming out later this year. And they also upgraded to Flow 0.75. So a huge slew of changes. For a long time, React Native has been just making feature development, and this release is very much a solidifying of the features and actually just making the development experience a little bit better, especially with all the additional Flow annotation support that they added for this release. If you do use Flow with React Native, you'll have a much better time when you're developing with it. But I mentioned in the previous episode that the React Native team is working on a new internal core system called Fabric to hopefully alleviate many of the pain points that React Native developers currently experience, and this release is a step towards that as well. So if you are a React Native developer, this is definitely an exciting thing. There are a few known issues that shouldn't break most applications, but they are known. You can read about it more in the blog post if you are interested about it. But React Native is still growing so fast. It does so much. It's a magical framework. I've played with it in the past, and for the amount of work that you put in for the native application that you get out, it's amazing. I definitely encourage you to check it out, especially now with this increased support with the flow coverage. And let's round things off today with a topic that I don't talk about as much as I wish I did talk about, but it's CSS, and specifically this is CSS Grid Level 2. Here comes the subgrid. There's a huge post on Smashing Magazine this past week talking about the Level 2 feature of CSS Grid called a subgrid, and it's a little bit hard to condense what that actually means, but suffice it to say that it allows you to have a grid. Right now you can have a grid, and you can nest a grid inside of a grid. However, the actual grids that are composed of those subgrids are independent of each other. Like the subgrid will not inherit the actual rows and columns of the parent grid, and that's where this feature comes in, where you can actually have the child grid inherit the rows and columns of the parent grid. So as the parent grid's columns change, the subgrid's changes will take into effect as well. And I think the best example was in this blog post about why this matters for you. If you have cards, like individual cards, they have a header, a body, and a footer, and you want the header to always have the same height as all the sibling headers, and all the footers have the same height as the sibling footers. As soon as there's one header that has too much text, it'll expand the height of just that header in that card, which will make the effect look like poop. But with the subgrid support, you can actually now do that in a much more guaranteed way. So it's not actually out on browsers yet. This blog post talks about the rules and the how to actually use it when it actually does become rolled out into browsers, but it's interesting if you do delve into Grid with CSS. I don't use it that much nowadays. I want to, I just don't have the opportunity to, but CSS subgrid is a thing that is coming out in the future. And so that was the console episode. This console log episode number 43. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the few things in here. If you are not already a subscriber, please do subscribe down below. Always love to see new friendly faces. And if you have any comments about this episode, do add one into the comment section beneath. I'm always there to reply with either a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a thumbs middle, or there's I'll just reply with the word thumb, because letting you know that I'm there, letting you know that you're there, I'll let you know that I'm there, and together we can all be there together.